What is going on, people? Welcome back to White Whale Fishing. So, coronavirus is here and it's a real thing, right? A lot of us are stuck in our houses, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to share some recipes with you guys. I've got a pretty extensive background in cooking, and a little disclaimer before we get going. This is real life, guys, so you're probably going to hear my 3-month-old in the background. You're definitely going to hear my 3-year-old in the background, and who knows, they may even make a surprise cameo appearance, but let's get on with the cooking. So let's start off with the topping for our fish. And in the Cuban culture, they have something called mojo, and this is really similar. And it's similar. It's spelled exactly the same way that you would spell mojo. They just pronounce it different. So we need an onion, we need some lemons, we need some good olive oil, and we need a secret ingredient called adobo. This is really a fancy word for seasoned salt, right? You've got salt, garlic powder, oregano, a little bit of cumin, and a whole lot of deliciousness in here. So this is really simple, and the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to cut some onion, but we're going to cut it pretty thin. Now, my kids won't be eating this. It'll just be myself and my wife, so I don't need to make a whole bunch of it. But this is something that is delicious on top of fish, on top of chicken. Stuff it into tacos is really good as well. So I would highly recommend you guys trying it if you like Latin flavored food. All right, so that looks like that's going to be enough. And I'm just going to throw some of that in a bowl, and I'm just going to kind of break it up. All right, and the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with some of this seasoning, right? How much seasoning? Well, for me, I mean, I've been making this for a long time, so I would just eyeball it. But for anybody else, I would say let's probably start, let's see, this is a 1/4 teaspoon. Yeah, we'll start off with a 1/4 teaspoon. We may add more later, but we'll go from there. Next, lemons. Add the juice of a lemon. Now, the purpose of putting the salt and the lemon in there is to start to break down the onion and to start to get that onion to release some of its flavors. We're gonna go ahead and add some olive oil right now. And we've added about the juice of half of a lemon. So that's pretty close to 1 tablespoon. So we will add a tablespoon of olive oil. Our relish, if that's even what you want to call it, has been sitting for a few minutes. And now it's time to figure out, hey, do I want to put some more adobo seasoning in there or not? First rule of cooking, if you want to know if something needs more of something, you have to taste it. Get a spoon. How does it taste? Lemon, olive oil, needs a little bit more salt. So we're gonna add a little bit more seasoning. So how much are we gonna add? You could add another, I think a 1/4 teaspoon may be a little much. So we're just gonna eyeball it. I don't know if you can tell, but those onions are starting to soften up. And yeah, they're gonna be delicious on top of that fish and rice and veggies. Easy, simple, not a lot of ingredients, and absolutely delicious. All right, so growing up a Latin kid, there's one staple in your kitchen that's there all the time, and that's rice. Making Spanish-style rice from home, from scratch, can be a pain in the butt. There's a couple of easy buttons out there, and Vigo makes a really good rice, right? This is a yellow rice with saffron. They also make a great cilantro and lime rice that pairs perfectly with fish. So that's what we're having tonight. It's real simple. We're gonna follow the instructions, right? 2 cups of water, a couple tablespoons of olive oil, bring it to a boil, let it simmer for 20 minutes. Boom, you got rice. So I don't know what I was thinking. We're missing the most important ingredient.
Love.
Beer and love and beer. Let's keep cooking. Just a little bit of advice for you guys out there when you're out buying fish or shrimp or calamari or whatever it is. Make sure that you look at this area, right? It will tell you what kind of fish it is and what it contains. And if you see under contains something that says like sodium tripolyphosphate, I would highly recommend you guys not using that. Product of Indonesia tells you where it's coming from, but the most important thing here is that it's wild caught. It would be great if it was domestic. We don't live in a perfect world, but wild caught is way better than farm raised. All right, so let's talk about rice. Water's boiling. I've got olive oil in there because that's what it says to do. We're going to go in with our cilantro lime rice because that's what the instructions tell us to do. They also say to let it boil for a minute before putting the lid on. Right now is the perfect time to find out what your rice is going to taste like because the seasoning is in there. Just taste the broth. It's good, but I think it needs a little bit more salt. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more salt. But yeah, it tastes like lime and seasonings, and it's gonna be delicious. Cool, we've been boiling for a minute. Lid's gonna go on. We're gonna turn our flame down to simmer. Simmer is just a hair or a scotch, fancy word, above low. All right, so we got about 20 minutes to go until our rice is done. So I'm probably gonna start cooking my fish in about 10 minutes. That way everything gets ready at the same time. So what am I gonna do in the meantime? I don't know. I have absolutely no clue what I'm gonna do. All right, so it's time to start preheating our pan because you never wanna throw fish into a cold pan. That's a great way for it to stick. This happens to be a cast iron skillet. You don't have to use cast iron. I just tend to like it quite a bit. If you wanted to use something like that, you could. That's what I'm going to be using to cook our vegetables in. And speaking of vegetables, we're having asparagus. I've just cut it up into some sections. I'm going to blanch it first. That's a fancy word for cooking it in simmering water. And then I'm going to cook it in there for about 2 minutes. Once it's done, I'm going to throw it into that pan and we're going to saute it with just some simple seasonings like oil, salt, and pepper. But you can see that this pan is starting to smoke and it's getting ready for our fish. The fish we're going to keep very, very, very simple, right? All we are going to do, we're going to be pan roasting this fish, but I like to season it before it hits the pan. I like to use avocado oil because it can take high heat very easily without burning. So I'm just going to season the fish just with a little bit of avocado oil. Nothing crazy. And I'm going to let some of that oil run off. And I'm going to kind of do this that way to make sure that the fish is evenly coated. I'm going to give my hands a wipe with some disinfectant towels, and then we're just going to season it. All right, we're going to use a little fresh cracked pepper. If you're feeding kids, you're probably going to skip this step. Add a little bit of salt. I find that most people under-season their fish, so don't be afraid to be intentional. Give it a flip. Wipe your hands. A little bit more cracked pepper. And a little bit more salt. All right, so we're getting ready for our fish. I'm going in with a little avocado oil, and you don't have to use avocado oil. I like it because it has a high smoke point, which basically means it doesn't burn easy. You could also use canola oil. And now it's time for our fish. You're looking to hear that sizzle immediately. Now, we're not going to touch it. We're going to leave it there for about I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes for a nice crust to kind of develop on the first side. Then we're going to flip it over, and then we're going to throw it into the oven. And that's what the term pan roasted means. It means started in a pan and then finished off in a hot oven. All right, grouper fillets have been seared, flipped. Now they're going into the oven. All right, water for asparagus is done. The most important thing about blanching vegetables: salt your water. Yes, that was a lot of salt. It's actually just probably a little bit more than a tablespoon, believe it or not. But that's how you get your vegetables to taste good. Like if you're boiling your broccoli, yeah. If your water is salty, not like ocean water, but salty, then you're ready to go. Asparagus in, lid on, timer, 2 minutes, start. And right now we start heating the pan for the asparagus. Put it on medium heat. By the time we drain that and get it ready, then this pan will be hot enough, ready to go. All right, asparagus is ready to go. I'm not cooking over high heat, so here I'm going to go in with some olive oil. So right now I'm going to turn off my flame. All right, turn the flame back on. I'm going to season and going back in with some adobo. You can use a spoon or tongs to turn this, but all right, now we're just going to cook that for a minute or two, and that'll be good to go. All right, groupers out of the oven. Asparagus is going to be ready in just a second. Rice is good to go. I'm going to start making plates. So put a little rice down. Put a little asparagus down. Put a little grouper down. Top it with a little bit of this delicious oniony goodness, and that's going to kind of roll down. Flavor that rice a little bit. You can even take a little bit more of that juice if you want to, and maybe even sprinkle that over a little bit of your asparagus. Final thing, we'll take our avocado, and we're not going to get super fancy with this. We're just going to use the spoon to kind of cut some slivers. All right, and we'll just pick those up as we're eating the meal. All of my Mexican friends would be very happy, but that's it, man. That's it, done deal. Some deliciousness. Nothing difficult to make, but delicious, healthy fish, rice, vegetables. We've even got salad. Guys, that's it. Thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate it. If you like Latino food, here's a little glimpse into hopefully an easy and delicious way that you can prepare some fish for yourself or you and your family today. I appreciate each and every one of you. Stay safe during the coronavirus, and make sure you love your neighbor like you love yourself. Talk to you later. Bye.